episode 4 of An Audience With. I'm Amanda Silva, and I've been joined today by Marilla Wex. She's a very well-known British voice actor. She's won various awards, and she's won Best Performance in a voiceover for an animation, and also Best Performance for a radio commercial in Canada. She's a very self-motivated professional, and she's done a variety of works as a voice actor. And as she has mentioned before in other occasions, you can literally name it, and she's done it. And not only she's done it, but she's done it multiple times. So thank you for being here with us today, Marilla.
You're very welcome.
Well, the first thing I would like to know, if you could talk us through your journey in education. So where did you study and what did you study?
So it really started when I was 16. I auditioned for the National Youth Theatre and got in. And then the next 3 years were all about just getting to London every summer so that I could do theatre with my friends. And from there, I went to Bristol University to study TV, film, and theatre. And then I took 2 years off to placate my bank manager. And then I went back into further education for 2 years at the Bristol Old Vic Theatre School. And really, I was going to say I've been studying ever since, but that's not true. I've been studying since I got to Canada, because it may have changed, but my experience as an actor in the UK when I was younger was that people are very passive. And in North America, actors are very proactive. So I kind of was like, oh, I should be doing things. I should still be learning, even though I'm a classically trained actor. I need to keep learning. So since I've been living in Canada for 18 years now, and ever since I've been there, I've really picked up my education again as far as performance goes.
Brilliant. So when you chose your career in university, was it part of a plan that you had to work in a specific rubric in the drama or the film industry?
Yeah, I mean, it's all I've ever wanted to do, even like from being a very young child. My first theatre experience was at age 4, playing Mary in the nativity play in my primary school. And I was on stage with the plastic baby Jesus, and the shepherds were hopping up and down because there was straw on the floor of the stage and it was hurting their feet. And I got quite cross. And I said, "You're ruining it." And I got this big laugh from the audience. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is what I want to do. So from age 4, performance was clearly what I was destined to do.
And also comedy, because if you made people laugh at age 4...
Yeah, that was a very intoxicating drug. So yeah, I did study and do a lot of stand-up comedy as well later on.
And where did you realize that maybe voice acting was something for you? Because obviously, if you study drama and film, that's usually very related to people, to seeing the actors on screen, to actually seeing them. Yeah. But being a voice actor, you can get away with many things, for example, being recognized in the streets and things like that. When did you notice that that is something that you would enjoy doing?
It was literally the first job I had out of drama school. So I graduated from Bristol Old Vic, and I'd already done a radio play, because it was sort of the last couple of terms we were really doing. We'd done a lot of voice training for the 2 years, but then in the last couple of terms, we were focusing on voiceover. And we'd done a radio play, or we'd done Pride and Prejudice, where I think I got my best note ever from quite a famous BBC Radio 4 director who'd come in to direct us. I was playing Lydia in Pride and Prejudice, and he said, my darling, could you try and sound a little less like a Barbie doll? And I was like, okay. And then right from there, I booked a job at Radio 4 in Pebble Mill to play I was 25 at the time, and I was playing a 14-year-old. A 14-year-old sex worker was my first job out of drama school for BBC Radio 4. And really, voice work has been the through line all the way through my career. It's always been the thing that I've gone back to over and over and over. So it wasn't, I don't think until relatively recently I made the choice to step away from everything else and focus on voice over. It's just the thing that has always been there for me, like a rock. Corporate stuff was always filling in when I was waiting, passively for jobs to fall from the sky when I still lived in the UK before I started being more proactive in Canada and the States.
So that voice acting is pretty much mainly your work at the moment nowadays?
Yeah.
So what other jobs in the industry or just in general have you?
I mean, I've done everything. I've worked at the Royal Shakespeare Theatre, I've worked at the Barbican, so I've done a lot of classical theatre. I've done a lot of fringe, improv, stand-up, comedy, TV, film, and I've worked behind the camera as well. About almost 10 years ago now, I became the dialect coach on set for the TV show Rain, which was about Mary Queen of Scots, that was filmed in Canada, but had a huge UK cast and Canadian cast, and there were Australians and New Zealanders and Americans, and I got pulled in because I was doing dialect coaching in Canada, specifically for UK dialects. And I got asked to come in and help some of the actors who weren't from the UK to make sure everybody sounded like they were at least in the ballpark of potentially coming from England. Even though they were playing French characters and German characters, everybody had RP, received pronunciation, so standard BBC English. So I was there to help them. So that was fascinating and really taught me how TV gets made, because I was sitting in Video Village every day. I found out what a gaffer is. I found out who, like, all the Sparks, what they did, and it gave me a full idea about how episodic television is made, and that was massively helpful for the on-screen stuff that I did after that.
Yeah, I get it. And throughout your career, you have worked in various jobs at the same time, like various type of jobs?
Yeah.
Or did you focus, maybe in some stages of your life, you focus on a specific profession?
I think when I was in the UK, I mostly did theatre. I did do Soldier back in the day. I think that was possibly one of my only TV appearances in the UK. Most of my TV and film work has been in Canada. And really, again, I was very passive. Things have probably changed. I hope they've changed. But when I was graduating from drama school, everybody just got an agent and then waited for their agent to give them jobs. So when I went to Canada, I also got very depressed. It does have a happy ending, don't be scared. But emigrating is very hard. Yeah. Anybody who's ever moved to another country, even if it's the same language that you speak, even if you think it's going to be the same, because I would say Canada is sort of halfway between the US and England as far as sensibility goes. It's still, you lose your entire frame of reference and all your friend groups. And my doctor actually said, you need to get a life. Literally, he's a friend, so he can say that, and it was okay. And he was right, and I needed to go out and form a friend group. And my friend had been bugging me to do this stand-up course, and I was like, fine. And okay, here's the side note. I do know Simon Pegg. I am friends with Simon Pegg, and he was like, why are you not doing stand-up? And I was like, everyone's telling me to do stand-up. Okay, fine, I'll do it. And that's how, A, I got myself out of a really horrible depression, and B, I made a huge group of friends in Toronto. And then later on, I had a comedy album that earned me ridiculous amounts of royalties. So it went, it was a happy ending to that story. So I focused on stand-up comedy and got more friends, and then realized I needed to be more proactive in other areas. So really, the focus in the last few years, thank goodness, has been on voice work, because it absolutely saved my bacon during the pandemic, because I didn't stop working.
And in any point in all that journey, do you have any moments that you felt that you needed a change in profession, or that you wanted to change in what you were working on at the moment? Definitely.
When I built my recording studio, which, let's be fair, is a closet in my basement, the jokes about going back in the closet never cease to amuse me. I was getting really tired of doing on-camera auditions, self-tapes. because the situation in Canada is that lots of American companies come up to Toronto to film because they get a lot of tax breaks for doing that. So we have a huge amount of co-productions between the US and Canadian production companies. Unfortunately, what that means for Canadian actors is we kind of get the day player roles. So you've got like maybe 6-10 lines in a movie, or you might be just a guest star on a TV show as opposed to being a regular. And I'd just been a regular on a Canadian TV show and was hoping to kind of cash in on that and you know, get more regular TV and film work. And it just wasn't panning out. And I felt like I was very, very tired of doing a lot of self-tape auditions, especially when the pandemic hit. Everything went self-tape. Obviously, nobody was coming into a studio to audition on camera. And I was like, that's it, I'm done. I'm done with on camera for now. If somebody comes to me with a job on a plate, I will be very happy to take it. But for now, I make way more money doing voice work, and I'm in control of finding those jobs. Anything that comes from my agent is like the sprinkles on top of a Knickerbocker glory. It's not something that, you know, I can make my own work by hustling. So, yeah, I mean, now, of course, everybody's going back to TV and film, and I'm feeling a little bit like, oh, I'd quite like to be on the telly again. So I'm having conversations with a new agent. Yeah, and let's hope my current agent never sees this. That's okay, you can keep this in, because she's never going to see this.
Maybe she's watching, so shout out to her.
She's in Toronto.
Oh, okay. Did you encounter any barriers in your progression in the industry? Because I know the media industry is really hard to get into.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, here in the UK, people can be very passive.
Yeah.
So did you encounter any barriers maybe when you got out of university, or maybe any cultural barriers when you got to Canada?
No cultural barriers in Canada. Canada is an incredibly diverse, very welcoming country, and there are a lot of British immigrants. So there was always going to be a place for me sounding like this in Canada, which was great. And in fact, the diversity right now in Canadian television is fantastic. And in fact, weirdly, I end up teaching a lot of kids of color how to sound like me, which from a colonial perspective is very problematic. But if they're an actor of color in North America and they can do RP, they're like a unicorn. So I'm always open to teaching them to sound like me, just because it means they will book more work. But yeah, it's a very odd position to be in. So the only barriers really for me were in the UK when I got an extremely high-powered agent when I left drama school. I was very lucky. I was with a company called London Management, which no longer exists, but I do remember sitting in the reception at one point with Christopher Lee sitting next to me, who was about 7 feet tall, and feeling like, gosh, he's very famous. And when my agent left the business to have a baby, I kind of went into free fall, because she didn't have a very good exit strategy, in that she didn't take care of a lot of her kind of lower, you know, the working actors, but not the ones who were famous from being on the telly. So she kind of just left, and I was like, what do I do now? And at the time, I was at the Royal Shakespeare Theatre, and I was just basically not in a great position to be taken onto another agency, and that did not work out well. And so I just fumbled around for a bit and then emigrated. So I was like, okay, bye. Whereas in Canada, I again lucked out and got an amazing agent. I think again because I'm a bit of a unicorn in Toronto, being British. And we have to say British in Canada, because if you say English, they're like, as opposed to Latinx, I don't. You have I have to explain to students that there are 4 countries that make up the UK. You can't just say a British accent, because that's not a thing. When my agent in Canada retired, she basically had already figured out agents for us to go to and had made those connections, and we just moved on to another agency, which was incredible. So I'll be honest, you know, white lady has not had a lot of barriers in this industry, except for my own laziness. I think that's the only time when I haven't really worked is when I haven't been hustling.
Okay, yeah. And now getting a little into your production process. Nowadays, with being a voice actor, I know that you work from home. So do you have any tools that you really like to work with that you could maybe recommend, both hardware and software?
Yeah, I mean, that is a barrier to voice work. I'm going to say that is the cost of equipment. And I tell my students, because I have a course that I run to help people understand what it means to be a voice actor, what the industry looks like globally, how you get into it. And I tell my students all the time, start where you are. What can you afford right now? What can you buy secondhand? Because if you're an old voice actor like me, you're upgrading your equipment all the time. It's like these camera guys will always be like, what's the latest thing? What do I want? What new gadget can I play with? Do I need a Steadicam? Ooh, this looks fun. It's the same thing being a voice actor. If you work from home, you're always like, I like the look of that mic. I'm traveling next month. What do I need in my travel kit? So I advise my students, start where you are, and then when you start making a living in voice acting, you can upgrade. So right now, I have my travel booth, because obviously I'm staying here for a month. I have everything set up in my booth in Toronto, but here I have a pop-up booth, a travel booth, which is basically sound curtains made into it looks like a pram hood, and then you stick a cantilevered blanket on the back that looks like an old-fashioned blanket that a photographer would use back in ye olden days. I have a Sennheiser 416 directional mic, which is an extremely expensive piece of kit. And the reason I have that is because I'm staying in an Airbnb, and obviously exterior noise is an issue because I'm not in my basement in my detached house in Toronto. I'm in a converted garage. I have an Audient ID4 Mark II preamp, which converts the analog signal from my microphone into a digital signal that my computer can recognize. And my software of choice is Reaper. I used to use Cubase, but I find Reaper much, much more flexible and powerful. And I also have the other bit of kit I bought recently is a controller. It's called the Contour Shuttle Pro. And that means with my mouse and my controller, I can basically do everything I need to do without touching the keyboard. So I've programmed it with a ton of shortcuts. Because there's not a lot of room in that little booth. I'm basically sitting at a table with my head in a pram hood doing this. That's me with my shotgun mic right here. So that's me in my booth. So yeah, those are the current things that I use. Not just for travel. Reaper is what I use at home as well, and the 416 and the Audient preamp. I've just taken those things with me and used the travel booth to create a little pop-up sound booth on the go.
Yeah, brilliant. And I have a question taking it from there, which is, you know that, well, in the media industry, you need to be constantly upgrading, and that's what you were talking about. What's the most recent discovery you have had in terms of maybe equipment or software that you were like, okay, now I need to go from this to this because this is a new thing now?
Honestly, it was Reaper. It was changing over to Reaper as my digital audio workstation. That's what DAW stands for. Because one of my friends is a studio engineer, and he's like, dude, why are you using Cubase? Use Reaper. It's better. It's faster. The reason I changed over is because a friend of mine asked me to do the audiobook version of a YA novel that she'd written. And I said, can I read it first? Because if you want to read the novel first to make sure, A, there's nothing sketchy in it. B, you like it, because you're going to be reading it 4 or 5 times. So I was like, yeah, great. And when you do voiceover, if you're in someone else's studio, they will operate on what's called a punch and roll system. So if you mess up, they will take it back a few seconds. In your cans, you will hear what you did up until the last sentence, so you can hear the tone, and then it will start recording as you come in. Cubase doesn't have punch and roll. So I was like, what am I going to do? And he's like, Reaper. My friend Tim said Reaper. So I got Reaper and I programmed my controller to do punch and roll. So now I can engineer my recordings for audiobooks using punch and roll, which is a much quicker way of editing than recording, messing up, stopping, doing a pickup, and then having to go back and edit it all. So that's really the most recent thing. So that involves Reaper and my Contour Shuttle Pro.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I hadn't thought of that before. But I was about to ask you if you can talk to us about maybe some of the recent projects you have worked in, or maybe any upcoming projects that you can talk about.
Yeah, I don't think I'm under any NDAs right now. So I just won, you mentioned earlier, the best character animation performance female for the role that I play in a YouTube series for Mojang about Minecraft, which is called The Secrets of Minecraft. It's a completely ridiculous YouTube series where sometimes we just make stuff up about Minecraft, not going to lie. And I play Marilla. They actually named the character after me, who is a kind of a old school DOS computer, who's completely bonkers. And my co-host is just called Narrator, and he's an actual like Minecraft character. And if any of you are fans of Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, it's basically Garth Marenghi is my co-presenter. So we've just started, I think I recorded episode 1 of season 4 last week. And we've got a whole season coming up of that. And that's really my only main regular gig. Everything else just comes to me piecemeal. There will be explainer videos, audiobooks, commercials will come out of the blue. So there aren't many regular gigs. I have regular clients who are usually production companies who come to me for work, but each gig will be a different thing for a different client. So yeah, The Secrets of Minecraft is the only one that right now is my regular gig. And it is my favorite, so I'm very lucky.
Why is it your favorite?
Because the scripts are hilarious. And I'm usually in Toronto, the writer is in Bristol, and the producer is usually either in Sweden, Australia, or LA, and we have to figure out a time zone that all three of us can get together on Skype so they can direct me, and then I record it in my studio and upload the whole thing to Dropbox, and then they edit it and make it and animate it and everything. So it makes me laugh. We get hysterical during the sessions, and it's really one of the joys of my life. I love doing animation. I do a lot of video games. So anything that's like completely over the top, where I have to warn my neighbors it's going to get noisy, is my favorite thing. I did actually achieve a career kind of bucket list item recently. It was like last year before, when I was doing Assassin's Creed Valhalla for Ubisoft. And when you're a video game actor, we do things called barks and oh-nos at the end of a session, which is any shouting, any screaming, any kind of wound sounds, because you don't want to do that earlier on in the session because you'll just blow your voice. And the joke is, now you've got to be on fire for 10 seconds. I actually got to be on fire. I was playing a nun, and I've had to try and get my friends to mess up the game so that they see me on fire, because I'm like, can somebody screen cap this? Because I want to see what I look like on fire for 6 seconds as a nun. But you have to fail the side quest in order to see that. So I'm like, could somebody just mess this up for me and do a screen cap? Because I'd love to see this. Yeah.
It sounds really fun, and I think it matches your personality a lot, and it matches your career as a stand-up comedian as well. So I think that's great. And obviously you are from here, from the UK. You now moved to Canada, but I know that your clients come from tens of different countries. So how has that experience been for you?
My sister makes fun of me because I talk about having a global business. She's like, ugh, and rolls her eyes at me. But it's true. You can be anywhere in the world with a decent internet connection and be a voice actor. So I was very lucky in that I'd built my booth before the pandemic hit. I have not stopped working. And financially, that was an absolute godsend. And then last year, I got diagnosed with cancer, and I did not stop working. And as a voice actor, if you're going to have surgery, the first thing you want to do is talk to your anaesthetist, because they will put a tube down your throat that can create a lot of irritation. And the very first appointment I had at the cancer hospital, the nurse said, "What do you do for a living?" And I said, "I'm a voice actor." And she's like, "Right, I'm going to make a note of that, because if you do need surgery, the anaesthetist will want to know that." And when it came to it, I had my surgery on the Friday morning. They gave me the smallest intubation tube they could get away with. I was back in my booth on Monday with no inflammation in my throat. Cool. So being a voice actor who is able to have clients all over the world and work anywhere has just been, for many reasons, through the pandemic and through my diagnosis and treatment, an absolute blessing. So, yeah. I don't remember what your question is, but I'm very happy that I'm doing it.
No, it was related to that, so it's perfect. And knowing that you've been working with so many people, so many different cultures, do you have any advice in working with clients in general?
Yeah, it's interesting. There are obviously cultural differences. There are ways of working that are becoming more analogous now, because especially during the pandemic, perhaps somebody couldn't get to a studio, so they had to work with somebody who was maybe from further away. But my general rule of thumb is to meet the client where they are. So some clients will be production companies, so they will be very tech savvy, and sometimes we will connect through Source Connect, which means I'm recording through my equipment, but they're recording it at their end through the magic of the internet. And other times I will be engineering the session, because the client doesn't have that software, and maybe they are the end client, so maybe they don't have an engineer who's then going to make it sound great. So it's about adapting your style to meet the needs of the client, and then following up with them. I say to all my students, once you've been paid, send a physical thank you card, because people's organizations are very easy to find on the internet. And it's a surprise in this day and age for somebody to get snail mail. So I feel like, I have a customer relationship management system that I use to make sure that, every 6-9 months, maybe every year that after I've worked with a client, I'll just say, "Hi, how are you?" At Christmas, I look at the list of clients I've had, and anybody who's paid me over $500 gets a holiday card. So those are just ways of keeping you top of mind, because it's much easier for a client to use somebody they like and trust than to have to go out and try and find another performer.
Yeah, for sure.
So just being a decent human is always good in this industry, whether you work in TV, film, theatre, stand-up comedy, just being a nice person who's easy to deal with. But then also be prepared to let clients go who are not going to pay you on time. I'm quite ruthless with things like that. And I'm like, my line is always, "I don't think this is a good fit," if they come back to me for more work. And if they press me, I'm like, "These are my terms and conditions, and you didn't meet them, unfortunately." So it's about give and take, but generally just being a decent human.
Okay, perfect. I know that you mentioned earlier about your course. You have a course on how to become a voice actor from home.
Yeah.
Could you talk to us briefly what that is about?
Yeah, so it's voiceworkfromhome.com. And basically, after I built my booth and I built my business and it was very successful, a lot of my friends wanted to take me out for coffee and pick my brains, which is lovely, but there is only a certain amount of coffee you can have before you've had enough coffee or enough lunches or enough pints or whatever you're into. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to formalize this and I'm going to run it as a course. And I used to run it at my house for a couple of hours on a Saturday morning, and I'd have 10 students at a time, and I would take them through what it takes to be a voice actor from home. And basically 50% actors already, 50% people who maybe hadn't done acting but had done other things and had always been told, oh, you've got a great voice, you should be a voice actor. And they were like, that's cool, but I don't know how. And then, luckily, before the pandemic hit, I was like, I want to reach more students. I had friends in the UK who wanted to know. I had friends in the States who wanted to know. And I was like, okay, I'm going to put this online. And then the pandemic hit. And I was like, yay, it's online. And then I updated it and made it a bigger course. So it's basically, what does it take to be a voice actor? How do you find out if it's for you? Because, like I said earlier, there is you have to have a certain amount of money to be able to afford the equipment. So you don't want to invest in this if you don't know that this might be right for you. So how do you find that out? Where do you find classes? Where do you buy your equipment? How do you put your booth together? Where do you find work? How do you bill your clients? How do you follow up with your clients? How do you build your business? So it's really... Originally, it was designed to show you a complete overview so you could then make an informed choice about whether you wanted to actually have a go, start looking into it and see if it was for you. And now it's mainly people who are like, I'm pretty sure this is for me. I'm going to take the course and then I'm going to go with it. So, yeah, and because it's available online, I have students all over Europe, the UK, the States, Australia, you name it, because... Now that it's a global industry, which it really is, especially since the pandemic, like I keep saying, anywhere you are that's relatively quiet, where you've got a decent internet connection, you can have a voice-over business from home.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think it's amazing that you found a way to transform the cafe meetings into something really educational for a lot of people that were not necessarily your friends, that were not necessarily going to invite you to have something for lunch, but people all around the world, no matter where you are, you can still teach them. And I think that's amazing.
Thank you. And also, it's weird because I had some pushback from other voice actors who were like, why are you selling our secrets? And I was like, it's a global industry. There is no lack of work. I don't want to come from a place of lack. There is so much. And to be fair, I'm going to say 70 to 80% of students take the course, get excited, start off, and then they're like, squirrel, and they're gone. And they'll go and, it's like when the pandemic kind of ended, when theatre started coming back, when TV and film started coming back, a lot of people have let their voice businesses go. And then as soon as that job's over, they'll be like, I could have kept this going if I'd thought about it. So anyway, I'm very much of the opinion that there is no lack. Sharing the secrets or sharing, the process doesn't diminish my business. I've been doing this 30 years. The jobs that a newbie is going to be going for are not the ones that I'm looking at. So we have to pass this stuff on. You can't hold in all the secrets and not share them. Otherwise, people helped me, so I'm just paying it forward.
Yeah, I got it. What advice would you give young people, especially in the UK, who are currently progressing or trying to progress into the industry?
I know I'm biased because I do love voice work, but I'm going to say, if you want something that's always going to be there for you, whether you're working in theatre, TV, film, improv, stand-up, fringe, whatever it is that you're doing, if you can have that baseline of income that you basically control, because a lot of it is through your own hard work, I would suggest that every young actor should look into having some kind of vocal booth that they can travel with, especially if you want to do theatre. Because let's face it, I love theatre, but it pays garbage. So if you want to actually pay the bills, especially with petrol prices and, that kind of thing, I really think if you can do it, it's something you can control, and then everything else is a bonus. Like, again, I got offered a TV job recently, and I was like, yeah, cool. That sounds fun. How many days work? Great. But I don't need it.
Right.
Financially, I don't need it. It would be a fun thing for me to do. Again, I'm starting to consider theatre again, which I haven't looked at in years just because it doesn't pay the bills. I'm able to do that because all I have to do is spend maybe an hour, not going to lie, maybe an hour auditioning every day, Monday to Friday, to maintain a 6-figure income.
Okay.
So then I can do theatre. So, okay, I've been doing this 30 years. I'm not saying you're going to go from 0 to 6 figures in 6 months. But if you can create that baseline of salary, then you can take jobs, you can take risks in your career.
Yeah.
You can do some crazy fringe show that you don't know what it's going to lead to, but you're not worried about buying groceries. Yeah. You're not worried about paying your rent. So because you have control of where those jobs come from and you are able to source them and you are able to audition them and you don't need an agent, for me, that's a way of still performing and still earning your living as an actor, and everything else is gravy. So everything else you can enjoy and you won't. I say this to my students all the time, and once you start doing it, you feel this. You go into an audition on camera or for theatre or for whatever it is, you have no fear. Yeah, you have no fear because you don't need that job. You don't smell of the neediness of the working actor who's like, oh God, I really need this job. You don't have that anymore because you already have the baseline of salary and you're like, this will be fun. And obviously you still care whether you get it or not, but it's not the difference between making your rent that month and not.
And do you have any advice? Because I know that that's what you have built up throughout the years. So do you have any advice on how to start slowly picking up some jobs so you can get to that point when you can be financially stable and you can also be happy with the things you do? So where you need to start is figuring out what your strengths are. Okay. And I mean, I'm lucky. I work in pretty much all genres of voice work, from audiobooks to video games, intense video games. If you're starting off and you're not quite sure what your strengths are, you need to take a couple of classes. And take different classes. So maybe take one for corporate narration. And maybe take one for cartoons or animation. Because those are very different performance styles, very different skill sets. And see which ones you like. And you might like both of them, and that's fantastic. My best friend, and I tell this story in my course, my best friend Jen, she is the chaplain in the Catholic school system in Toronto, and she's also an actor, a union actor in Toronto. We used to go to these open mics. Different casting directors would come in, run you through your paces. It's amazing. We did the corporate one month. She nailed it. She was the best. She kicked ass and took names. The next month, it was animation. She hated her life. So awkward. She was just like, I hate this. Can I go? Do I need to finish? I hate this. And I was like, Jen, come on, you can do this. And of course, me and my husband and her husband were bouncing off the walls, just super into it. Wasn't her cup of tea at all. So then she knows animation is not for her. She doesn't physically feel comfortable doing it. It's too out there. She doesn't do character voices. It's not for her. If you can narrow that down and go, okay, I'm going to start with corporate stuff. Or animation is totally my thing, which means video games are probably going to be your thing as well. Okay. Pick a couple of genres that are quite different and go take a class. You can take classes online, you can find them locally, and see what appeals to you. If you're already a student, or if you're already doing improv, or you're doing, what do we call community theatre here? Amdram, whatever it is that you're doing that you're into, you already know that performance is in you. You're just maybe not quite sure what genres would be good for you. Just take a class and see if you like it.
Okay, so what was it like working on Assassin's Creed? How did the video game genre differ from the other genres of animation? Does it differ much from animation? Is video games different from shows, cartoons? What's your take on that? Video games are a completely different ballgame, because how you record them is you do A, B, C takes of each line. So you could have a 30 to 100-page script, and each line you will not necessarily get context. And that's the director's job, to give you context. So what an ABC read is if the line was, I got to get out of here, depending on the context, your reads might be, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. And then the director, if they want anything else, they'll ask you for something else.
And then at the end, you get the barks and the oh-nos, which is all the screaming and the shouting and the getting stabbed and the being on fire. So because I was a classically trained actor, don't tell anybody this. I did all of this sitting down in my booth at home. Normally in a studio, you would be standing with a music stand, and you would just be pulling, like, as you go through the script, it goes on the floor, it goes on the floor, it goes on the floor. I was sitting in my little closet booth in Toronto because it was during the pandemic we recorded Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And so I am being on fire, sitting on my butt, and I was able to do that because I was classically trained to use my voice as a theatre actor, so I can get away with doing that. I would not suggest any new student does this. This is 30 years of diaphragm control. Video games are quite different from animation in that usually you will be doing, again, your director might ask you in a cartoon for A, B, and C reads. Sometimes if you're very lucky, and this is coming back now at the end of COVID, is you will do it like a radio play. So you will have the entire cast of the cartoon in a studio recording all at the same time, which is phenomenal because then obviously you're bouncing off each other. But that's rare and that's lucky if you get to do that. Again, it's completely different from audiobooks where the gain is going to be turned right down in your preamp because you're basically talking into the microphone like this. We're not shouting, and when we do shouting, we'll do shouting like this. It won't be like full voice because then that doesn't work when you're mixing an audiobook. Each genre has its specific ways of working, which is why you need to learn how to perform in those different genres. And also, I will change mics if I'm recording at home. There are certain mics, like a condenser mic would be better than my directional mic for certain jobs. If I'm doing audiobooks, the directional mic is great because you can get really close in. It just depends on what it is that you're recording. And then you have e-learning, where it's just like pages and pages of really technical stuff usually. And then you have to make it interesting for the poor person who's got to listen to that at some point and actually learn something. So, yeah, I'm very lucky. I've been doing this a long time. I pretty much enjoy all of the things, and the variety is what keeps me sane. I have to say that if I could, I would possibly just do animation and video games, because for me, they're the most fun. As a comedian, I generally get to explore more things in animation and video games than I do in all the other genres.
Well, thank you very much for being here in Crawley College with us today. For me, it's been a pleasure to be here talking to you because I think you're a really fun person to talk to, just in general. So it's been great. Thank you very much again for being here.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And also, thank you for watching An Audience With.